Good afternoon and welcome. I hope you will enjoy the short story about my Nuffield journey as much as my cows have enjoyed it over the last number of days listening to me practice it. First off, I want to say just a few thank yous. I want to thank my wife Caroline and our children Tommy and Emily for going through all of this with me. I want to thank my parents and especially my father Richard for looking after the farm while I was gallivanting around the world, as he would say. And I want to thank everybody involved in Nuffield, but especially Kevin, Amy, Eilish, Karen, and of course John. John, I don't know would any of us be standing here today without you. Thank you so much. We owe you so much. And last but not least, I want to thank all our generous sponsors. Without your back-end, none of us would have this opportunity. Thank you for giving it to us. So, let's get down to business. As Granny mentioned, I returned to full-time agriculture in 2013. And one thing that has really struck me since returning to it is the ever-growing, challenging narrative around what we do in agriculture, and especially our interactions with the environment and nutrition. Now, the UN forecast that by 2050, 68% of the world's population will live in urban settings. So therefore, the gap between those who produce food and those who consume it is going to be ever growing. So it was with this thought in my mind that I decided on this topic. So the first thing I looked at was the area of perceptions. Now, perception is a thought or a feeling that something is definitely true or exists that can be held by many based on how things appear. Now, as you can hear from that, a perception is an intangible. And to try and change or improve an intangible is going to be a challenge. But thankfully, King's College in London have looked at this for me. And what they found was that if you want to improve or change a perception, you've got to engage at a young age and you have to have multiple interactions. So now, armed with all this, I headed off on my travels. I visited many different places. I was in Australia, Japan, Singapore, the Philippines, Israel, Kenya, Italy, Belgium, the Netherlands, the UK, the US, and Canada to see could I find any answers to this question. So one of the first visits I was on was actually in the UK, where I visited Laycross Farm and met with Nick Green and John Alvis. Now, along with running Laycross Farm, these guys also run an organisation called FarmLink. And what FarmLink does is that it takes children on farm visits. And last year alone, they took over 45,000 kids on such visits. But the difference is these are not normal farm visits. For a number of weeks leading up to the actual farm visit, the children will investigate a topic in class. They will then see the practical side of it on the farm visit, and again for a number of weeks after the visit, they will write up a report on it. So it actually works more like a project. So now, instead of it being a once-off the farm visit, the children are learning about agriculture over a period of weeks and even months. Also in the UK, I met with the NFU and I attended the launch of Invention. Invention is a competition for primary school children that looks at linking STEM and agriculture. They have set a number of problem-based challenges, such as designing the farm machine of 2040, wool, a wonderful product, and so on. And the idea is that it will give a better understanding to children of the issues that farmers face on a day-to-day basis. Now, they have a number of curriculum-based resources in place to help the children with this, and these are designed in partnership with the National Association of Science Educators in the UK. Now, one of my favourite visits was to a farmer called Tom Martin just outside Peterborough. Tom has come up with the idea of FaceTime a Farmer. So what is FaceTime a Farmer? FaceTime a Farmer sees a farmer making a Skype or a FaceTime call from his or her farm once every 2 weeks to a class, where he or she will discuss something going on the farm that can be linked to what's happening in class. Over the last year, Tom has got in partnership with Leaf, and now there's over 400 farmers and classes linked in the UK in FaceTime a Farmer. And luckily enough, earlier this year, I got permission to run a pilot here in Ireland. So myself and 2 other farmers were linked with 3 schools. I was linked with St John of God's Girls' National School in Artane here in Dublin. Now, what really struck me about FaceTime a Farmer was the interaction with the children. The calls were only due to last maybe 10 to 15 minutes. They always lasted at least half an hour, and the reason was the questions. They just kept coming at you with questions. And the other thing that really got me was, as the calls progressed, you could see that they were getting a better knowledge of agriculture. So, like, I remember on my first call, one of the first questions I got was, where did I get my jacket? But this wasn't long changing, I can tell you. So I remember on a later call, a girl put up her hand, and she was like, sorry, I was Googling last night, and I've seen that a cow has 4 stomachs. Is this true? So I confirmed it. Now these are 9-year-old girls, they've kind of progressed. What do the stomachs do? We discussed all that. And remember the last question from one of the girls was, if they have 4 stomachs, in which stomach does a calf grow? So these are the kind of ways that they were thinking, but it was great to see the engagement that they had with agriculture. So on to Canada, and I visited with 4H. Now 4H, like so many other organisations around the world, are looking at this link between STEM and agriculture. But one thing that caught my eye was a collaboration they're doing with Nutrient Limited. Now Nutrient Limited have developed a number of online games and apps. One such game is Journey 2050. Now this sees players being taken on a virtual farm simulation tour exploring world food sustainability. Through the use of an inquiry-based approach, players are encouraged to make decisions, but more importantly to adjust them as they see their effect on the economy and on the environment. And all of this is built in line with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Also in Canada, I visited with Agscape. Now the big message they had for me is that it's more than just about agriculture, which I had heard in other areas as well. We have to be talking about nutrition and the environment as well in any interactions we're having with schools. And we have to design resources that are linked to the curriculum, but are helping to develop the children as critical thinkers. This is really important. So, on to Australia, and I visited with the Primary Industries Education Foundation of Australia. Now, one of the really great resources they have is something called Prime Zone. So what Prime Zone is that it's a single point of access for both teachers and students to get hold of agricultural educational information. So in Australia, you've got many different organisations such as Meat and Livestock Australia, Dairy Australia, Cotton Australia, and these are all creating great resources linked to the curriculum. But now what's happening there is this is all feeding into Prime Zone. So it's now so easy for schools, for teachers and for students to know they can go to one point and get what they want. And then it's all set out in there. Each resource is linked to what subject it's to do with and at what level for the children. Also in Australia, I visited the University of Melbourne and I met with a man called Stuart Barber. Now Stuart was a lecturer in the School of Veterinary. And what he highlighted to me is that they've been having a big problem the last number of years with a lot of intake of their students coming from urban backgrounds. And they don't have any real understanding of farm animals. So the idea that Stuart has come up with is that he does 360 videoing on a number of farms throughout Australia during the year. He will then overlay data such as temperature and rainfall on this, and then he will set questions for the students in class to help them develop a better understanding of the challenges that Australian animals face, farm animals face. Now, if we think about this, a resource such as like this could easily be rolled out to primary schools. But there is interactive whiteboards. You could add stuff like drop-down menus and drop-down videos with further information. It could be made relevant to the stage the children are at and the topic that they're covering. Now, as I've mentioned throughout this, it's more than just about agriculture. We've got to be aware of the environment and nutrition as well. And on the back of this, I have to mention the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Now, Karen mentioned them earlier, and I thought she was going to take my whole slide, but thankfully she didn't. So, what are they? There are 17 goals that were agreed by all UN member states in 2015. And a general summary of what they're trying to do is they're trying to alleviate hunger and poverty, protect the planet, and ensure peace and prosperity for all by 2030. Now, us as farmers, and us and anybody involved in the wider agricultural industry, must ensure that we operate in line with these goals going forward. Now, back in October, I was lucky enough to get the opportunity to speak at the plenary session for the UN Committee on Food Security for the launch of the UN Decade of Family Farming. And I'd encourage anybody here from Nuffield, like Karen was saying, that if you get an opportunity to speak or to partake in these, please do, because we've got to have our voice heard. So, what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that it's all about STEM and agriculture. We are not going to get a standalone subject into national schools on agriculture. We must build and enhance the link that exists there. And we must do it in such a way that it's linked with the curriculum and that we're creating critical thinkers. We must leverage the opportunities that immersive technologies give us. Now, there is virtual reality and augmented reality. That's probably a little bit down the road yet to getting that into primary schools. But look at the 360 video. It can easily be adapted for primary schools. Now, FaceTime a farmer, we just have to roll it out nationwide. Every farmer has a smartphone. It's so easy to make that Skype call. Every school has got a camera and an interactive whiteboard. We can just do it. We just need a little push. If we are lucky enough to have farm visits, we must make sure they're more than just about the one day. We have to look at what FarmLink are doing and make sure it's over a period of time and we get the most benefit that we can from that visit. We must also consider the opportunities that online games and apps are giving us. These can really give us a chance to connect with a completely new generation who don't know anything about agriculture. And underlying all this is the fact that we need one single point of access. It must be easy for students and teachers to get hold of this information. We can't crowd the space and confuse them. So, this is the last slide you'll be glad to know. So what I'm trying to say here is that agriculture can be the tree upon which children learn about science, technology, engineering, maths, nature, biodiversity, and nutrition. We can leverage the opportunities that immersive technologies give us to do this, and if we do it properly, we can create a generation of critical thinkers that can solve so many of the different problems the world has today. I want to thank you very much for listening to me. This is just a very short summary of what's in my report, which is now live on the Nuffield website. Nuffield International, if you're looking for it, actually. And that's only a very short summary of the different things that I saw and experienced on my journey. So please feel free to ask questions or to contact me at any stage. Thank you.